Imagine a room where the air suddenly turns to ice. A glass shatters on the floor, or a voice is raised in a sharp, jagged edge of anger. While everyone else jumps, gasps, or looks for an exit, you simply stand there. Your heart rate doesn't spike. Your face doesn't flinch. You just reach for the broom and start cleaning up the mess. Society calls this strength. They call you a rock. The one who is always so calm in a crisis, but you and I both know the truth. It doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a tomb. You are not a rock. You are a flood that learned how to freeze itself solid, just to keep from drowning everyone else. And you are deeply, profoundly exhausted. You have spent your whole life being the strong one. The therapist friend, the overachiever who never asks for help. People look at your resume, your stoic independence, and they think you have it all figured out. They don't see the curated, highly managed version of yourself that you present just to stay safe. They don't see that you are a high masker. Behind that perfect disguise, you are carrying a weight that would crush most people. But here is the thing, you aren't broken. You aren't cold-blooded or antisocial. You are running outdated survival software in a room that is no longer on fire. Your calm is not a personality trait. It is a brilliant, life-saving adaptation of your nervous system. When you were younger, you lived in a world that was too loud, too volatile, or too demanding for a child to handle. Your biology did exactly what it was designed to do. It adapted to keep you alive. Specifically, your nervous system learned to unplug. When the threat became too much to fight or run away from, you entered what we call a freeze response. Think of it like a circuit breaker in an old house. When there is too much electricity running through the wires, too much stress, too much fear, the breaker flips. The lights go out. The house goes quiet. You didn't choose to be numb. Your body chose it for you, because the alternative was a total system meltdown. You are surviving a threat that is no longer in the room. And that is why you feel so lonely, even when you are surrounded by people who admire your strength. Because nobody knows the real you, they only know the shield you built to protect yourself. You are safe here. You can put the weight down for a moment. We need to understand why this armor was built before we can even think about taking it off. There are 3 core reasons why your system learned that being scary calm was the only way to survive. The first is what we call the Fawn response. You weren't just a child in a room. You were the thermostat. You spent every waking second reading the temperature of the adults around you. If the air felt heavy with anger, you became the person who Zoe. You learned that your safety depended on managing the moods of volatile people. You realized that if you showed your own anger or your own fear, it would only make the room explode. So, you learned to be flat. You learned to be a mirror, reflecting whatever they needed to see to stay calm. You abandoned yourself to keep them happy. The second reason is what I call the Shield of Detachment. At some point, you realized that showing your vulnerability was like handing someone a weapon to use against you. Maybe you cried and you were told to stop overreacting. Maybe you reached out for comfort and you were met with a cold shoulder. Your nervous system took notes. It decided that intimacy was synonymous with the loss of freedom or the inevitability of pain. So it built a fortress. It created a version of you that doesn't need anyone, a version of you that is fiercely independent to the point of isolation. You don't fear love, you fear the pain that historically came with it. And the third reason is hyper-vigilance, that calm face you wear in a crisis. It's not because you aren't afraid, it's because your mind is working 1,000 times faster than everyone else's. You're a highly intelligent protector, because your childhood was unpredictable. You had to learn how to predict the unpredictable. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment for threats, calculating every possible disaster before it happens. When a real crisis finally hits, you aren't surprised. You've already lived through 100 times in your head. You aren't calm because you are at peace. You are calm because you are on a battlefield and you've been there your entire life. Can you feel how heavy that is? Can you see how hard you have been working just to exist? Society calls you a control freak or an overthinker, but in reality, you are just a soul that is deeply terrified of uncertainty. You control your environment because if you don't, you might be caught off guard again, and your system has decided it will never, ever let that happen again. It makes complete sense why you are this way. Your nervous system isn't broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is protecting you, but you are an adult now. You have choices and power that you didn't have as a child, and it's time to realize that the war you were fighting is over. But there is a specific kind of grief that comes with being the one who never breaks. I want you to travel back for a moment. Imagine a hallway in the house where you grew up. You are standing there, small and observant, holding a big feeling in your hands. Maybe it was a grand joy you wanted to share, or a crushing disappointment that made your chest ache. You look toward the door of the room, where the adults are, and in that split second, you do something remarkable and tragic. You scan the air, you feel the tension in the way someone is washing the dishes, or the heavy, silent storm brewing in the way another person is sitting on the couch. You realize, with the terrifying precision of a child whose safety depends on it, that there is no room for your feeling. If you bring your joy, it will be ignored. If you bring your pain, it will be too much. So, right there in that quiet hallway, you perform a miracle of survival. You swallow the feeling whole. You smooth your face until it is a perfect, unraidable mask. You walk into the room and ask if anyone needs help with dinner. That was the day you became the strong one. That was the day you started holding up the sky so that it wouldn't crush the people you love. But here is the paradox. Because you are so good at being the rock, people have stopped asking how your shoulders are doing. They see your resume, your clean house, and your steady hands, and they assume you are fine. They don't realize that you are a high masker who is profoundly lonely. Even when you are in a crowded room, they don't know the real you, only the curated, highly managed version you present to stay safe. And the most painful part, you've spent so long blending into the colors of what other people need you to be that when you look in the mirror, you don't even know your own original color anymore. You feel like a ghost inhabiting a very successful human life. But I want to tell you something that no one else has had the courage to say. You do not need to be fixed. Society might call you antisocial, or emotionally cold, or a control freak. But they are wrong. In reality, your system is just a highly intelligent, hyper-vigilant protector. Your control is just a deep terror of being caught off guard again. Your calm is just a nervous system that is exhausted from carrying a decade's worth of emotional weight. It makes complete sense why you built this fortress. Your armor saved you when you were small. It was a brilliant strategy for a child in a chaotic environment. So, for a moment, I want you to thank your nervous system for doing its job. Thank your fear for keeping you alert. Thank your numbness for keeping the pain at a distance when it was too much to bear. But I also want to give you a permission slip that you have been waiting for your entire life. You are allowed to be tired. You are an adult now, with choices and power you didn't have in that hallway. You are running outdated survival software in an environment that, finally, might be safe enough for you to breathe. Healing does not mean tearing down the whole fortress today. That would be terrifying. Healing is just a choice to slowly, very slowly, put down the heavy armor. It is the decision that, just for today, you can leave the gate of your fortress unlocked for the right person. It is the radical act of looking at your own reflection and saying, I see how heavy that is. You can put it down now. You are safe here. You don't have to think positive or just let it go. You just have to notice the weight. You just have to soften the edges of your mask, even if it's only when you are alone in the dark. This process is slow and it is messy, and that is perfectly okay. I make these videos for people like us, for the ones who are always the therapist friend, but have no one to call when the world feels too heavy, for the high achievers who are secretly drowning in overthinking. If this felt like someone finally turned a light on in a room you've been sitting in for years, please know you are not alone here. Consider subscribing to join our community of recovering strong ones. Share your story in the comments, not for advice, but just to be seen. Because here, you don't have to be the rock, you just have to be you. Thank you for watching. And thank you for carrying it this far.